Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second eCommerce Explored webinar. It is brilliant to have you all tuning in. We have had a huge number of signups to this session, like 30% more, she says, doing some quick maths in her head, than the Black Friday one. Who knew analytics was more interesting than Black Friday? Well, officially, in my world of stats, in my world of analytics, in fact, too many puns already, it is more exciting than Black Friday, and I wholeheartedly believe that anyway. Before I go off on one about analytics versus Black Friday, it is great to have you all here. This is the eCommerce Explored events, which we run as a kind of amalgamation of activity between my various e-commerce brands or e-commerce media brands. So eCommerce Tech is a brilliant website for finding your next tech solution. We've got eCommerce MasterPlan and Keep Optimizing, which are my two podcasts. And across all of that, the aim and these events, the aim is to help you make better decisions in your business to better sculpt the success of your business, which is why we're covering analytics strategies. And I've already got comments coming in. Hello, Edward. Awesome to have you here. You do seem to turn up to everything, but that's not a complaint. Very cool seeing familiar names coming in the chat. So thank you, Edward. That has reminded me that I really do need to tell you that this is a panel session. There are very few slides. This is all about getting the expertise of my guests. I've got plenty of things to flag up to them and to ask them, but I would also love your perspectives too. So feel free to put your questions in that chat box that's on the right-hand side of your screen. They come through to me a little bit delay time, but I do get them. I can see them. Like I can see this one right now from Muga Mogan, who I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Great to have you here. And you're somewhere that it's morning, so I'm guessing you're possibly stateside. And we've had Edward saying afternoon all. I know Edward's in the UK. Great to have you all here, but get those questions in sooner rather than later, because I find our audience have a bad habit of waiting until 10 minutes to go to send loads of questions at me. And quite frankly, I don't have time to get all those questions answered if you ask them in the last 10 minutes. So if you've got a burning question you want to ask, chuck it in the comments right now and I will feed it in at some point during our session. Of course, you can also add them later too. And yes, Seattle, very cool. Thank you for joining us. I'm guessing it's very early if I've got my coasts right in the US. So thank you for getting up, and I hope you've got a nice pot of caffeine near you. And the other thing I need to say before I tell you who our guest lineup is, and you say a big thank you to our sponsors because they make all of this possible. So a huge thank you to Sparklayer, Penny Black, Distil.ai and Sweet Analytics, all of whom have been sponsors for this event. Thanks, guys. Love working with you. And I also should tell you that there is a very special offer from Oliver and the Sweet Analytics team that you will get in our replay email. So keep your eye out for that. We've already got a question coming in. Loving it. Thank you. And that's a great question too. Okay, who are our guests? Because I love a bit of analytics, but I know just about enough to be dangerous and to ask the right questions. I do not know enough to answer your questions. So I am joined by four brilliant guests who know huge quantities of information about analytics from different angles joining us today. We've got Oliver Sparks from the aforementioned Sweet Analytics. We've got Gerry McNicol from Distil.ai, who's also one of our sponsors. Bianca Dihoiu, hoping I pronounced that right. You can correct me later. I can see her laughing at my pronunciation off stage, so I'm guessing I got that horrendously wrong. But Bianca's joining us from the team at Littledata, and we've got Luke Carthy joining us as well, who is just an all-round analytics highly knowledgeable person. Not that the rest aren't highly knowledgeable too. And then you've got me, the host of all of this, who is here to kind of funnel the questions to our panelists, who I think it's about time we met. So let me bring the panelists up on stage. Hello, guys. Great to have you all here. Bianca, how do I say your surname? How wrong did I get that?
It's Bianca Dihoiu.
Dihoiu.
Yes, you were close.
Closer the second time, not so good the first time. Brilliant. Thank you all. Bianca, we'll start with you. Could you introduce yourself to our audience, please? Tell us a little bit more about you and what Littledata do.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today, Chloe. And I'm happy to join this awesome crew to discuss some analytics today. I am the head of customer success at Littledata. I started as a customer support rep almost 7 years ago when the company was founded. And now I'm leading a team of four amazing individuals who are super passionate about analytics and are looking forward to helping our merchants in their analytics journey. Now, a bit about Littledata. What is Littledata? Littledata is a plug and play tracking solution for Shopify and BigCommerce DTC brands. What we do, we ensure marketing attribution with complete tracking across user journey. We provide server-side tracking. We track every order, subscription, upsell, and refund. And of course, we offer support from a top-rated analytics team.
Brilliant.
That's it.
Thank you, Bianca. Now, I'm sure there's some phrases within that some of the audience are going, server-side tracking? What? So maybe we'll get some questions on some of the technicalities of analytics as we go through, because let's face it, one of the reasons we're doing this is because it's become a lot more complicated in the last 12 months. Let's come to Luke first, and then we'll carry on round in the circle.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, maybe even good evening, depending on how stretched we are across the globe. But my name is Luke Carthy. I am an all-round e-commerce consultant, busybody, nosy person, love analytics, and I'm obsessed with e-commerce growth. Yeah, kind of excited to be here. I do a heck of a lot of work with GA4, a lot of migrations for people, wipe a lot of tears of people who are still upset about universal analytics and its death. I know, rest in peace. Yeah, just lots of good stuff. But I think actually myself and Oliver had a really quick chat just before, a bit of backstage bants, if you like. I love adding context to data. And what I mean by that is everyone has data, but how do you make it make sense? Like just having numbers is great and is a great indication, a bit like a BMI if you go and have a health check. But what do those things mean? So adding context is something that I really love to do and actually kind of building that whole picture for people. But yeah, that's me. Excited to be here. Can't wait to get started. And yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And I haven't yet had anyone say it's late night, but we have had Paul Baines tuning in from New Zealand where it's 4 a.m. Paul, there's a replay available. Did you not know that? Sorry, love you, Paul. I've actually got some questions for Paul if we have time for them later that he's already submitted. Gerry, please tell us a bit more about you and what you guys do at Distil.ai.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Gerry. I'm the founder and CEO of Distil. So I'm a data scientist by trade. Worked with hundreds of e-commerce brands, some big VC-backed businesses and scale-ups, and all the way to partnerships with people like Deloitte. I love data, really, and how it can transform and inform a business. So Distil.ai is a platform that I started working on a few years ago. Now got a team working with me, building up the engineering there, and we focus on helping a business all the analytics they need, all the way to revenue operations, is what we call it. Data, we believe, sits behind all of the things a business needs to do, from understanding marketing attribution to products to inventory to customer segmentation, all of that. Really, our aim as a business is to take you to from a high level of data maturity very quickly, taking away all the pain. That's where we focused, is getting you to that value very, very quickly.
Bit of a process coming on here. Everyone focused on the value, which is the be all and end all of any analytics strategy. What do you actually want to achieve? Oliver, last but most definitely not least, please tell us a bit more about yourself and what Sweet Analytics do.
Yeah, thanks, Gerry. I'm a retailer by trade, and I came into tech 5 years ago when I set up Sweet Analytics. So I'm the founder of Sweet Analytics. We are a platform that helps SME brands really understand their data and use that data to grow. And as we talk about things going on, I'm really passionate about this topic. I've grown a number of brands myself, and I know that I have this phrase, hierarchy of need. I really hope, Chloe, out of this, we can convince everyone on the importance of data, because I know from my own experience, in times I've been successful or less successful, really understanding data has been absolutely the core cornerstone of what I would say of being successful. And I hope we can bring it up, that hierarchy of need, out of the conversation today.
Me too. I think the number of people who've signed up for this and the number who've turned up live, including those who are tuning in from New Zealand, where quite frankly I would have been asleep, is tantamount to the fact that people are really switching on to the fact we need data. So questions for you. So everybody, we're trying something a little bit new this time. This could be one of Chloe's terrible ideas, or it could be one of Chloe's brilliant ideas. We will see how it goes. But what we're going to attempt to do is I have done a number of statements, and the audience have seen these statements in advance, and we are going to see what they think of my statements. Are my statements good? Are my statements bad? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? I'm guessing there's going to be some it depends answers in here. But statement number 1 is taking control of your analytics isn't something you can ignore until January. I wholeheartedly believe this. What do the panelists think? Who fancies jumping in on this one? Stony silence. Luke, you just unmuted, so I'm going to come to you.
God. I was just being prepped. All right. My answer to this is, I think everybody knows, let's be honest, retailer, analytics novice, startup, everybody knows they shouldn't really, but there's just always something a little bit more important and a little bit less painful to get on with first. But in all honesty, I think January itself is potentially a huge period for retailers, as is, of course, the quarter that precedes it. Potentially maybe even up to 60-70% of turnover. I have a good friend of mine who sells exclusively Christmas trees, so you can imagine waiting until January is probably going to end up with a lot of tears and a lot of what ifs. But my point here is waiting until January is certainly way too late. But there's never really a good time to do it. I mean, now is probably as good as you're going to get, right? If you're the kind of person who hasn't done it yet, as soon as this webinar is over, it's probably worth investing in. But yeah, we shouldn't be waiting until January to get our analytics in check, because of course we can't look at things retrospectively if we're not tracking them in the first place, which is a whole problem in itself and a whole different thing. But yeah, that's my take on that.
Anyone in disagreement with Luke there, or want to add anything in?
Well, I'll add, but not to disagree. I think the pain point is really well made, Luke. To be honest, I think people think this topic is really complicated, and the real thing, in my own experience, from being a retailer, was this is really complicated. But platforms like us at Sweet, Gerry, I'm sure you do the same at Distil. We're really about making this easy, and so going back to January or now. It is now, because you need to understand what happens over the next 2 months. And if you're a Q4 business, you need that more than anything else. And there's no point waiting till January to make that happen. So it's not, people shouldn't be afraid. I think Luke's point about pain is one of the fears that people have, but there really is no need for fear or pain. So that's good news.
Yeah, I would second all of that, and I'd also say that when you look into data, it's a journey, right? You don't go just give me the answers now. You have a question which leads to another question, which leads to another question, and if you can start, you'll be answering those questions after this really important period. And if you start capturing that data now, that means you can go and answer those questions. It also means you can start to react during this important questions. You will get early signals. There will be low-hanging fruit, which will potentially divert your strategy, and that can make a significant difference to your business. So yeah, don't delay. Really, it's now is an important time to get your data sorted.
Yeah, and I just to jump in once more, Craig. Personally, I just find that the Black Friday fear that seems to grip everyone in this period now. It's not, this is on that hierarchy of needs, this is an important thing to do, and you'll be better able to come out of this period if you've taken the steps now.
And would it be fair to say, I'm going to send this question at Bianca, but I'm going to twist it a little bit. Would it be fair to say that when we say taking control of your analytics, doesn't mean you've got to do everything this week? It means you need to get the bedrock in place so you've got the right data to analyze when we get post-peak. You're nodding, so I'll let you answer.
Absolutely. I think we all remember that point in July when Universal went away, but everyone before July was saying, get your GA4 tracking going. Past July, you will need it as soon as possible. It's better for you, for your team, for your company. You won't get to the perfect data in a blink. You will optimize and optimize for as long as you want. There will always be something to adjust, but get the basis going. You need to set aside a day and make it happen. You'll be thanking yourself at the end of the quarter for that day.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the journey. Commit to the beginning of the journey, I think we're saying. So let's go on to my second statement, which is more of it is a complete the sentence. Let's get a bit practical here and try to resist going install my software. Please, everybody. If people are going to do like Bianca suggested, and they're going to take that day, maybe tomorrow, maybe a day next week, where they're going to clear it out to go, right, let's get our analytics journey started. To get that right data to optimize peak and beyond, what would you be advising someone to do? And you're welcome to qualify whether you're talking enterprise or SME or startup at this point. Gerry, do you fancy kicking us off with this one?
Yeah, okay. So there's two types of data, isn't there? There's data which is sitting there and you can extract. So things like your order history, your customer records, they're sitting there and they're safe, really. You can pull those out at any time. The one which isn't safe is that transient data set, the events, the tracking data we're talking about, people clicking around your site, the performance of your campaigns. I think probably all of us here have got software where you can press a button and simply just install. We've got that. I'm sure Littledata has it. I'm sure SweetData has it, where you just press a button, install the software, and you can start capturing that event data. So as soon as you've got that, that's where a lot of your answers are going to be. The other thing you want to potentially look at is just making sure that all of the campaigns you're running, I would say you've got organized. Your UTMs are in a good shape. You're making sure the campaigns are tagged really effectively, so that then you can retrospectively go back and do that. So identify, to me, that's important, is identify the data sets which you're going to lose if you don't start capturing, and just start capturing those data. Once you're doing that, you can almost put the project aside and pick it up after peak if you really want to. But yeah, get your campaigns sorted so that you can identify what's driving what activity, and make sure you're capturing that engagement data.
Nice. I like that. I feel like that was a very comprehensive answer. So at risk of us all repeating ourselves, is there anything anyone wants to add onto Gerry? Is there anything else you do? Oliver, you're wanting to come in.
I feel absolutely, I agree with the sorting everything out bit, but I think the bit that I feel very strongly about, and Bianca, I did a webinar with Edward from Littledata the other day, is really about how you use the customer data to improve your performance in Google Ads, in Meta. We're just working on doing it in Amazon as well. And it's really important that there is a value in that data that needs to be pushed through to those platforms, because GA4, whenever you set it up, only has inputs from that date. It may or may not be working perfectly, depending on whether you've set Littledata up in the background or how you've set up GA4. That whole bit matters, but there is value in your customer data. There's value in your customer data being pushed into PMax. There's a very basic setting in PMax of, do you want to target existing customers or not? And if you haven't got your customer feed set up, then you're not going to maximize peak. So there is real value in pushing that data into ad platforms. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked in, we talk about analytics and we talk about creating value from data, but that is a really important strand of value creation, I think. And Luke, you do a bit of paid, so I'm sure you must have to touch that occasionally.
Well, I'm actually, hold that thought, Luke, because I think, Oliver, you've just given me the perfect segue into the next statement, which I think, unless Bianca or Luke have anything to add to our list of things to do right now for peak. No? Yeah,
I do. To be a real pain in the backside, I absolutely do. One which I think is massively, we touched on it, but I don't think we put the nail right on the head, which is actually, is it even working? Right? Like the amount of times I onboard clients and they're like, yeah, analytics is fine. I'm like, hold on a minute, mate. You've got £500,000 in your analytics platform, but you've done 220K, or the other way around, or tracking certain pages, or all sorts. Like, honestly, the fundamentals is probably one of the most overlooked things, because you all look for the new and shiny. So there's that. And then the second thing is, what is it you want to understand? So actually, forget about the data for a second. We don't pick up a box of tools before designing the wardrobe we want to build. We ultimately start with the wardrobe. We've got to measure and work things out, work out a budget. Like, what questions do you want answered? Right? What is it you want to understand? What do you need to learn? What are your weak points? Start with questions, start with people, start with conversation, and then reverse engineer that into bells and whistles, tools, and everything else. But yeah, that's it from me.
Luke, you're definitely not being a pain, because those were two really brilliant points to bring up. I think so often as a marketer, and I've been a performance marketer and an email marketer predominantly in my career, and I'm like, give me all the data. I'm not going to use any of it, but I want it all. It's all mine. And it's like, do you actually need this? Have you actually got what you need that's actually going to be used and actually make the difference? So I love that. Bianca, did you have anything you wanted to quickly add on this one before I move us on to the next one?
I think we can move to the next one. I
Cool.
do love your data hoarding attitude. Bring everything in. You never know when you need it. It's better. It's better to have it.
I totally get where you're coming from. It's not desperately GDPR friendly though, from an email standpoint, but that's another webinar for another day. Okay, so Oliver was segueing us into this. GA4 is not fit for purpose. Set it up for Google Ads and then ignore it. I'm gonna. Luke, I had a feeling Luke might have opinions on this one. So
got to do a chair spin just to calm myself down for a minute. Okay, so the way
are you excited because you agree wholeheartedly, or are you just head in hands?
I'm a bit on the fence. Honestly, I think it's a bit of both. I think the real reason is we compare GA4 to Universal Analytics, right? Naturally, it's an evolution of a product. You're naturally going to do that. The way I like to see them as analytics tools is Universal Analytics was like a meal kit. It was like a Gusto box, a HelloFresh, whatever you want to call it. And everything is made for you. All you're going to do is put it together and your meal's at the end of it. You've got mindless kind of cooking. GA4 is like a supermarket where you kind of walk in, go down the aisles and think, I don't know what I want to cook. And I've got 1,000,001 different things to look at in a supermarket to try and come up with a meal. But of course, GA4 is infinitely more powerful. But of course, it's not made for you. You have to tell GA4 what you want to measure. And that is why, out of the box, compared to UA, GA4 correctly is not really fit for purpose. It's effectively a template. UA, to summarize, I believe, was a tool made for marketers, and GA4 is a tool that's been made for data scientists. They're two different use cases with two different people, two different sets, and we need people like us, whether that's a middle layer of software, whether that's consultants or a bit of both, to kind of actually take it from a data platform, an analyst platform, and turn it into stuff that makes sense for marketers, for end users, for brand owners, and all that sort of good stuff. But yes, out of the box, GA4 is not fit for purpose in almost all cases, e-com or otherwise.
Sorry,
You responding to that one, Gerry? There's a big statement for you.
There is. Bianca, you do a lot of work with Google Analytics and helping retailers with that. What's your take on it? Do you agree with Luke, who was kind of against my statement and then kind of came back into it, or have you got another take?
I was skeptical about GA4. I was a super fan of Universal, but in the past 3 months, if not more, I came to love it. It's like a toy box. You have all your toys inside. It's just a different analogy from Luke's. You make your own game with the toys that you're offered. You're not limited as you were in Universal Analytics. I remember the pains that were in Universal from a customization perspective. And I think GA4 gives us that opportunity. Yes, it's a learning curve, but if you're curious and you know what you want out of it, you're going to get it. Just give it time, both for you and the platform. It's a work in progress, but I think GA4 is going to be the tool for analytics in the next years, and I hope everyone will give it a chance.
Yeah, we've just got to get ready to embrace actually setting it up. Gerry, you wanted to come in there, so I'll let you come in. I'm going to add another question from the audience in because I fits with this, so feel free to incorporate or not. But I'm just going to put it up on screen. So Gerry, over to you.
So I think my view is there's an awful lot of tools out there which are for data people. I think give me a database which has got a perfect single customer view in it. I can write SQL against it. I can write reports against it. I will be very happy. But the value that a business gets is actually being able to see answers and respond to answers. And I think that GA4 being another data tool is fantastic, and it's a very powerful data tool, but it is for analysts. So to a certain extent, the value that you got from Universal Analytics or from great analytics is being able to give the business answers they need to strategic and tactical questions, but where they don't actually need to have a whole army of data savvy people to get to those answers. So I think GA4, like a lot of tools, is complicated, and actually data shouldn't be complicated. You should be able to get to the answers quite quickly, and you should be able to use those answers to iterate and improve what you do as a business. GA4, once it's set up, is great, but sometimes, overcomplicating things is not necessary.
Cool.
Can I just add, Gerry? I mean, I'm a fan, to be honest, from amongst all the skeptics and, clients having a nightmare over it and all the rest of it. But I think going back to Luke's point, the real thing is, what are you using it for? And the first thing is, site performance and the funnel and, knowing, traffic down to conversion rate. And, they have now finally set up that funnel in it, if you can find it. But it is there. It wasn't there 3 weeks ago. I think I was on a call with Edward, and we almost discovered it by accident. So
doesn't sound like Google at all.
Exactly. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way of product developing.
Yeah.
So I think of course, GA4 is a really important tool, but I think what really matters is actually just getting down to Luke's point about what questions you want to answer it for. So is it how site performs and funnel, and how do you where in your funnel is it breaking to maximize conversion, or is it just understanding around what channels marketing is coming from, and that is more complicated in the new GA4 world. But hopefully, as we all get used to it, it will become easier to get a hold of it. And the really annoying complication at the moment is that GA4 and GA3 and different properties. So in Suite, we've popped them into one dashboard, so you can pull them both really simply into one place, because it is complicated. But I'm still a fan of GA4 despite all its teething problems.
Yeah, I think it's that evolution that Google's evolving the product, and we've got to stop expecting it to be universal and be ready for it to be something else. We've had this, we are going to come back to the question from Mugu, I do suspect, on probably the next one of my slides, but I figured this was a good question to bring in at this point in time. So this is Edward asking, we're currently evaluating whether it's worth investing into building out an enterprise GA4 layer, or can the GA4 and move on to something like Adobe Analytics, so to completely change strategy. I'm guessing I'm going to assume from answers thus far that maybe the GA4 layer is the better idea. But would your take be on this, everybody?
Data's data, isn't it? How you decide to present that is up to you. So I think a lot of pain points that a lot of clients are going to go through is thinking that switching to another solution is going to provide answers. If you didn't have the answers with your previous data, moving your data into a different platform gives you, in most cases, the same answer, right? Like, again, I love analogies. If you put bad fuel into a car and then you think it's the car's problem, I want to put the same bad fuel into a different car, you're still going to have a problem, right? So I genuinely think move to enterprise if you're running to a point where you hit limits, whether that's a case of GA4 on your free account is hitting your quotas. You have more maybe custom dimensions and custom properties that you need, that you're allocated slots for. If you've got a major international reason for doing so and it kind of exceed the feature set, yes. But if you're left with a question unanswered with data, moving to another solution, in most cases, there's always caveats and exceptions, is not going to provide an answer. And irritatingly, to throw a little bit of shade to the analytics industry, is people overpromise and underdeliver. So someone there might be saying, like, yeah, we can fix that. We've got a solution for that. You move to another solution and guess what? Your data was bad in the first instance. It's still going to be bad now. The whole classic garbage in, garbage out situation. But yeah, I don't think enterprise analytics is always the right solution, particularly as it might cost you 6 to 7 figures to find out you've made a massive mistake. Potentially.
It sounds a bit like the odd, no one ever got fired for buying IBM. So do actually get to grips with what you're doing. I'm guessing there's alternative perspectives from Gerry and Oliver on this one. So Gerry, would you agree with what Luke said, or do you think there's a different route to go down?
I think it depends on what you want to do, obviously, and I don't want to be controversial and disagree with Luke too much, but there's quite a lot you can do with data that is not just analyzing your marketing performance or your performance of your website, your e-commerce store. There's things like customer segmentation, there's things like forecasting, there's things like understanding, demographics and geography, and also flowing data from one platform into another platform, which sits way above just understanding what's going on in your marketing channels. I think if you look at, a data strategy, which is often the same as a business strategy, which is, who are we selling to, what are we selling, where we're selling it, when we're selling it. The analytics you get from attribution and things like that are a small part of that answer. So you need that right. Garbage in, garbage out. You're right, absolutely right. You've got to get that right, and that's whatever platform you need. But actually, in part of a wider strategy of really understanding who your customers are, understanding the KPIs behind your business, and being able to forecast those. It might be the time to move. It might not be the time to move. But there's a whole suite of things you can do with data. And if you're looking to do that and optimize, things like your engagement with customers and using data to do personalization, I think it's important to be able to pick up your data and move it around as well as just analyze it.
It's kind of we're speaking a lot here about we see analytics and we automatically think website and what Google Analytics used to get us, but actually there's so many other parts if you really want to get your e-commerce business going, of product analytics, customer analytics, email analytics, social analytics, and this whole piece. And if you're, I would say most e-commerce businesses are not yet advanced enough to want to combine them all, but it's part of that journey, isn't it? Now, I said we'd come back to the question from Mugu, and I'm gonna bring it in now because it's a slight twist on the question you guys have been answering from Edward and my statement about GA4. Why should Mugu consider anything other than Google Analytics when it's free and mostly does the job? Bianca, I'm going to come to you first on this one because I'm guessing it's, if we've got our Google Analytics set up correctly, then probably we shouldn't consider anything. But what would you say?
Well, I say you need to turn it on all its sides. Yes, the tool is free. You can funnel data there and let it be. You can try alternatives. There's no one going to tell you, okay, you set up Google Analytics and forget every analytics tools that exist on the planet. No, you're free to experiment. But Google Analytics, with its ups and downs, has proven to be a versatile tool. It's just a matter of why you need it. Who are the stakeholders of that tool? Do you need it only for marketing? Is product in need of that data? What do you want to optimize? What results are you looking at in Google Analytics? So in my opinion, you shouldn't be gated, but keep Google Analytics if it's free and browse if you're curious.
Yeah. Oliver, your take on this one?
Yeah, I think it's back to Gerry's point. I think we've got a bit sidelined into word analytics, meaning Google Analytics, and there is so much more in a data strategy than Google Analytics. And so I suppose, for me, I believe it's a key part of any, and I'm sure we've got non-marketers on the call, but it is key part of any marketing toolkit. But it is not the only part, and I think that's almost enough. So yes, you should have Google Analytics. You should have, it's free and it's great, but does it provide you with everything that you need to run an e-commerce business? In my view, clearly not. And that comes from basis of trying to run, running brands myself. It's part of a toolkit. It's not the only part.
Which I think means we should move on to my final slide that I have for you, my final statement. And then we'll be coming very much to the questions from you guys out there. So make sure you're, hold on, oops, remove the slide, hit the right button. There we go. So once we've answered this one, the questions very much open up to you, the audience. I've got 4 more questions ready to ask, but I would love it if you could ask us some more because we really want to make sure this is valuable for all of you out there. So do keep sending your questions in via the chat, and we will be doing an awful lot more of answering your questions after we discuss this last one of my statements. So guys, a solid analytics strategy is the starting point for any e-commerce growth strategy, especially in the next 10 years, by which I mean as our industry evolves and grows up, as we've seen it doing, competition increases, etc., etc. Who's got an opinion on this one?
We've all got. I mean, this is probably our heartland for all of us. I mean, I'll go first thing, Chloe. I mean, I'm rather older than most people on this panel, so it was equally relevant 15 years ago, 20 years ago, exactly the same. And my own experience is I grew the White Company, which is a brand some people in the UK might know. Though once you understand your analytics, and that when I particularly mean customer analytics at that point, you can then really start to understand how you grow your brand. So whether it then becomes a product strategy or a channel strategy or an international strategy, all the levers of growth that can be pulled, in my experience, have to be linked to an overall understanding of customer metrics and what those what does a customer produce for you in order to reach your, Gerry mentioned forecasting, reach your goal. Every brand owner has a, whether it's a dream or a budget, it doesn't really matter, but some number that you want to get to. And in my experience, unless you really understand, taking your statement, have a solid analytics strategy, understand customer metrics, then the chances of you being successful are less. And that's irrelevant whether it's 15 years ago or 10 years going forward. The same point is for me the cornerstone of anybody wanting to grow a brand.
I would completely second that, and I'd also say it's almost like a chicken and egg situation, or an egg and chicken situation. People have asked me, what should our analytics strategy be, and my response is, well, what's your business strategy? And my business strategy is, I need to sell more stuff to more people. Well, great, that's your business strategy. The analytics strategy is, well, what's the stuff you're selling to who? So the two things always link together. And if you don't have a business strategy, you don't need an analytics strategy. But if you're going to have a business strategy over the next 10 years, then you really need an analytics strategy to understand if that's working and to see where it's working and how to zero down on it. So the two things are linked very closely, I think.
I was talking to an analytics consultant at some point over the last month who was going, every time I speak to someone about their analytics strategy, I discover I'm having to go back and help them create a business strategy in the first instance. They really do go hand in hand. Bianca, your take on this one?
I think a strategy is important for the coordination of your entire team or entire teams, because you want to see success, but also potential failure. You can optimize only by having a guideline and a strategy for your business. Set it there and then start working on it with your teams together separately, but everyone has a baseline. Once you have that baseline, optimizing can be done for improvements, for wins, but also to see your losses. We can't forget about them. Yes, there's a lot of wins and success, but something at one point might break or not function or have the desired outcome. And you want to have the data to support potential improvement for your business.
Nice. I love that. Using it to bring the whole team together. Such a good idea, because otherwise you end up with merchandising looking at this data and the buyers looking at something else and everyone pulling in different directions. Luke, final word from you on this one, and then we're going to go to some amazing questions that have been coming in from our audience.
I think this is a little bit like the statement you get on the back of a cereal box that says a healthy and balanced lifestyle is, the value of life. Like, we all know this, right? Like everybody on this call is here because we all know analytics is mad important, right? Or we know it's incredibly important. I think that as a statement, I agree with 100%. So much so, it's got me really passionate about it. But I think an important step to take back, and I think the chicken and egg sort of situation that we've spoken about before, and that Gerry's mentioned, is like, people. Who are your people? What do you care about? What is your brand about? Are you a brand that is all about the tech, or are you the brand that's all about the product in the sense of what it is you sell? Because some people just don't care. Analytics just is not something that people care about, but there needs to be someone in the business who understands it. So my point here is, and the reason why I say this is that building an analytics strategy is important, but only if someone in the business is able to complement it, to enrich it, and actually to make sense of it. If you've got someone in the business who is just all about innovating and inventing new products and understanding and speaking to customers and, you know, finessing and all that sort of stuff, it's not really going to land. So you have to have someone in the business who can really take that, make sense of it, and roll with the punches. But
who'd you say that person normally is, Luke, in your experience? The roles.
Great question. I'd say that's normally myself, or a permanent person in the business is typically the CMO, but really should probably be shifting towards tech a lot more, because I think it's a hybrid between tech of like what to build and where to have it, and then marketers. And this is the difference between, again, dashboards and insights and data. And there's always a separation. Data, it can be as complicated as it wants to be, but it has to be presented in a way that someone can look at it and go, right, I see the problem, there's my solution, I need to go and fix it.
Nice. Good question, Gerry. Thank you for that one.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to start looking at questions from the audience. So we've got quite a few to get through, so fairly pithy answers, short answers if you can, guys. I'm going to start off with one. So I've been canvassing opinions and questions across some LinkedIn posts and across my Chloe's e-commerce club and the members of that. So the most, which if anyone wants to join of the retailers, just head to chloelink.com/club and apply. We let people in about once a week. But what the number one thing that people have been asking has been, I think, one of the most basic questions in the world of analytics, which is the KPI question. What KPIs should we be tracking? Kudos to Marco from the club, Paul, who's also on this call, who asked this in the club, and somebody who I've lost on my list, but their name is somewhere, who asked the same question on LinkedIn as well. What KPIs should we be looking at? And I'm going to caveat this with, we're all going to say less is more. So before everyone says less is more, what KPIs would you recommend an e-commerce business looking at as putting on that dashboard?
Well, I'll kick off really. So, Chloe, for me, it's trying to make it as simple as possible. People need to know what they want to achieve. So whether you want to go from 1 million to 2 million or whatever, or 5 to 10 or anything else. So first of all, that's it. But then the things you need to know are, how many new customers do you need to achieve that goal? So number of new customers. And the second thing is, how much can you afford to pay for a new customer? So cost per acquisition. And that cost per acquisition needs to be based on lifetime value and not on average order value. And very simply, most businesses' growth is driven by those, profitable growth is driven by those, simply those two metrics. And so for me, that is absolutely the focus of, you wanted a short list of KPIs? There's two.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting topic. I've got to be honest, I love and hate KPIs in equal measure. And the reason why is KPIs are normally catalysts to questions. Right. So like, let's say, for example, you've got a key KPI, whatever that metric is, and you're up in the right direction by 140%. The immediate question is how, why, when, can we replicate it? Can we concentrate it, rinse and repeat, bottle it and sell it to somebody else? And that is when you come to context. So like, KPIs are helpful, but they typically don't answer any of the problems. They are literally just basic traffic light systems. And I think the reason why KPIs are kind of a struggling point for myself is people can live and die on them, right? So those classic KPIs that you see in whatever analytics dashboard you use, we spoke a lot about GA, bounce rate was one back in the day, users, page views, like they're all indicative, but they don't answer questions. They don't tell you which customers are having a bad experience, which are the best, where are you losing the most amount of customers? And this is where context really comes in. So I think it's helpful, and it's like kind of understanding what your BMI is, but it doesn't really tell you what you need to do to make things better. And that's where I think the frustration is. So focus on it, but don't make it your be all and end all of analytics. It's not good enough.
Okay, I'm going to move us on to the next question, because we've got loads of really, really good questions coming in. So sorry, Gerry, Bianca. Hopefully you guys will have something to, well, I know you're going to have something to add on the next one. But we've had 3 questions basically come in from the team, I can call you the team, can't I, audience? The team and the lovely audience out there who are asking questions. I'm going to bring them all up on screen one by one, but I can only show one at a time, and there's 3. So Mugu, marvelous Mugu, came on at the beginning, has been asking good questions all through. He says, like most small companies, we are small. One person in marketing, having them do a whole load of stuff means the only thing they can do in analytics is report, not answer questions, unfortunately. We've then got lovely Brenda. Hi, Brenda. Thanks for tuning in. Who says, for a marketing team of 1, what percentage of their time would the panel recommend that they spend on analytics and analytics strategy? And then we've got another one, which has just come in from Steve Lunt. Hello, Steve. Thank you for joining us, which is, how do you evaluate your time and effort between analytics from things like ads versus spending more time and effort on analytics from email-owned channels during Black Friday and Q4? Basically, time and people. How do we, what's your advice on making a good use of your resources when it comes to getting the most out of your analytics piece? And I can flag any of those back up again if you want to see them, but I'd love your perspectives on it. Or Gerry, I'll come to you first on this one because I cut your
I was trying to get back to my previous answer, really, that it's spending time on your analytics strategy is the same as spending time on your strategy. So if your strategy is to work on your ads, you've got to have some metrics against which to measure it. You can't just do ads or do email and not measure anything that you're doing. So if you're going to spend time working on your strategy, you should make sure that in that strategy you're understanding what result you're hoping to get for it, and you should make sure you can measure it. I don't think you should broadly do analytics all over the place. You should be focused on what you're trying to do, but there's no point doing something if you're not going to measure its success. There's literally no point doing it. So focus on what you're doing and then measuring it. That's how I would say you split up your time.
And of course, if you've got a clear strategy, you know where you should be spending your time. So the decisions become a bit better. Oliver, I feel I may have just given your answer, but do give us more.
No, I think Gerry and I probably come from similar thought process in life. And my answer to that would be, you should spend as little time as possible putting data into a platform. I've run businesses, and usual business practice, Monday morning people spend hours doing reports and pulling numbers into spreadsheets or whatever. And so what's really important, I think, particularly for small companies, and absolutely that thing there, is you've got to be able to get to these numbers easily, because if you don't get them, then everyone will lose the will to live. And that's what's really important. So I sort of glibly say, people don't really care about what dashboards look like. They just really care about what should they be told what to do. And that is absolutely the core of it. And what you really need to do is not spend your time trying to find out what the numbers are. You need consistent numbers, consistent ways, in as simple a way possible. And that's the really, really important. So as little time getting to the analytics is number one for me.
I have to say, I would tell Mugu's team member to stop producing reports until they found a way to make the reports happen faster or automated, so then they can actually spend the time they were spending making the reports actually answering some questions. Bianca, what do you think about how we can make it easier for the teams to get to the good stuff rather than spending their time on the less useful stuff?
I think it's best to spend some time setting it up in the beginning, like Oliver mentioned. Set something solid up. What are your KPIs? Going back to our previous question, what are your KPIs? What are the metrics that help you measure the success or failure of your strategy? Even if you have 10 elements in your report, but you're going to look at them daily, weekly, monthly, set them up, and you'll thank yourself in the following months for having them set up.
I think something I'd love to add to that is outsource it. If you're in a situation where you literally are struggling for the time, you're in a situation, small, intimate team, maybe there's no one in the business who is particularly tech savvy. You've also got to worry about compliance, and that's a whole other thing to worry about, right? But the cost of not outsourcing it could be way greater than the cost of outsourcing it. You want to be in a situation where, rather than having to spend what you thought would be half an hour to get an answer, you started at 9 a.m. and all of a sudden it's 2 p.m. and you don't have an answer. You want to be in a situation where that becomes somebody else's problem. And I'll give you a classic example, actually. So there's a retailer out there in the world of fragrance. I won't name drop because sponsors are a thing and I don't want to get myself or Chloe into trouble. But if you search for Black Friday, you get no results right now. In the world of fragrance, probably one of the top 10 things that will sell over Christmas and a festive period. That is insight, right? That is the stuff that people want to look at a report and go, there's my question. How is search performing? And the answer is Black Friday isn't, got, 300 searches a day happening. We have no results. We need to go and fix that, rather than firing up GA4 or whatever analytics platform you're using and then going, right, I've got a lot of data. I need to answer a question. I don't know how to do it. Just outsource the thing, get the experts in. You wouldn't rent spanners on your own car if you didn't know what you were doing. You'd hire a mechanic. So why is it any different for analytics? Pay for someone else to do it, save the time, save the stress, and then just have the insights and the good stuff within minutes rather than hours.
Nice rant. Thank you. Luke's contact details for all of that are below this video. You can get, actually below this video, you'll find the links to all our speakers. You get in contact with them via LinkedIn and via their websites if you've got more to ask of them after this. We've had a couple of questions through, which I'm going to need very quick answers to, which I think in a way we've kind of covered the whole way through. We've been talking about this, but they're both around. Well, Mary asks, should an analytics tool provide a ready-to-use answer to the question what to do, or is that a task for a specialist? And then Tom has answered, or asked even, if an analytics tool makes recommendations, do you trust them, or do you evaluate it all manually? I mean, I'm guessing we should just set it up right in the first place, and then we'll get those answers. But do you have to validate it all? Can you get to a point where it spits out the answer? I'm guessing now we're in the world of AI, there should be some answers coming. Gerry, you have AI in the name of Distil.ai, so I've got to come to you first on this one.
To me, to get a tool that's going to answer all possible questions is very difficult. Right? We'd like to do that at Distil, and we're trying to work towards that. But actually, it's the answer is in the data set. And what you want to do, I think, a good principle is to set up automations where you can. So focus on the things you want to report on daily, the things that are going to drive your business. So KPIs, but all the underlying sort of layers behind that. When you want to answer ad hoc questions, that's a job for a specialist. I think it will always be a job for a specialist because it's not a linear journey. You sort of zigzag around all over the place. You look at this, you look at that, you look at this, and you go on explorations. And that's where, again, to Luke's point, I think having someone you can just speak to and say, could you go and find the answer to this, or just go and think about this? Data is complicated, and people who are specialists in data are, very well educated, very well qualified individuals. It's a real speciality, and they will be able to give you answers and be able to give you good answers to those things. But I think going back to right back to the start of this, when we're talking about getting your data into a good shape right now, when you want to answer those questions, if you have your data in a good shape, you can answer those questions, whether it's on your surface, you digging around in some tools. But if you want to go really deeper, and you can go really deep with data, then a specialist can give you absolutely outstanding results and give you a real differentiator in what you do.
I'm going to come to. I'm just going to say, everybody, we are not going to be able to take any more questions from the audience. So thank you all for all those that you've sent in. I'm going to let Oliver answer that last question. Then I'm going to have the final question for Bianca, Luke, and Gerry, and Oliver. So Bianca, Luke, Gerry, if you want to start thinking about your answer to that final question that you already know I'm going to ask, you've got a couple of minutes whilst Oliver answers this one to get it in. Oliver, I cut you off. Your answer, please.
Just to add from Gerry's point, I think all of us around here, from Luke and his experience, or all of us from a sort of more technology background, that we are all providing solutions that give people as far as possible as we can all move our own tech to give people the answers and the recommendations. But there's a certain responsibility for people to take on around their own business experience and understanding. So I think the world has moved a long way since I became a retailer into, I think you can get 80% of the answers out of the platform, but then you do always still need a bit of people, a bit of experience, a bit of insight, whether it's consultants like Luke or, Gerry says, there are lots of people out there who can help, with those fundamental questions, how much should I charge for free shipping? What threshold should I put on? I would love to design a platform that told you the answer off the bat, but that's a real business question with real value. And that needs people to answer that kind of thing with business experience. So I'm afraid I think it's the bar gets higher and higher about what we can all deliver from a platform perspective, but you still have to add the experience and the insight from people as well.
Excellent answer. Thank you very much, Oliver, for that one. So the final question to each of you, this is going to have to be a bit quick fire because we're fast approaching the o'clock. But the question is, we've covered so much in this episode. What's the one thing you think the audience should take away from this as kind of like your top number one takeaway? Obviously, if people before you have already said it, you've got to come up with something else. Bianca, I'm going to give you the easy job of going first, then I'll come to Luke, Gerry, and then Oliver can have the final word. So Bianca, what's your number one takeaway?
Thank you, Chloe. So for the audience today, I'll keep to set it up. If you don't have time to set it up, find a person, find a tool, set up the tracking, set up the analytics tool, the dashboarding, and then you'll thank yourself.
Excellent. Short and sweet and perfect. Love it. Thank you. Luke, yours, please.
As mad as this sounds and as hypocritical as this may come across, forget everything about analytics and data and just start with the questions you want answered, right? I can't stress how important it is to just understand the questions that you want answered. And that list doesn't have to be comprehensive, it doesn't have to be complete, it can never be extended, that's not what we're saying, but just start with questions, throw it around the business, change them, enrich them, add more, and then once you have that, look at data. But I think we make massive mistakes for starting with the data, getting flustered and forgetting about the questions. But yeah, short and sweet. I'll leave it there too.
Cool. Thank you, Gerry.
I would say data is a journey, right? You can make a list of all the questions you want to do. That's a great place to start. Don't be overwhelmed. Try and bite off a little bit, but also expect that you might veer off violently, because as soon as you answer one question, that might change all the questions you want to answer for the next time round. So be prepared to go on that journey and enjoy it. Just pick a partner who's going to take away the confusion and the engineering and the complexity, and the human brain and what you're trying to do is actually where you want to get to. So don't be overwhelmed and just enjoy the journey. Really make a start and trust yourself. You'll get something interesting will come up.
Brilliant advice. Thank you very much, Gerry. And Oliver, the final word.
So that's a thing. The number one thing I've found that really has, as a retailer, has made a big success of me is what I would call a growth model. And what you really need to understand is you really need to understand your customer metrics in terms of how you're going to grow, because every business is different and it all depends on how many people you pour into that top of the D2C funnel. Some you retain, some businesses need lots of acquisition, and all of that is understandable. And that then sets you on your whole journey onto how you construct your business. And then you can get into the whole strategy of how do I move the numbers. But if you haven't got that basic understanding of how do your customer metrics work, then your chances of growing from whatever number you are to whatever number you want to be in the future are much less likely, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just anyone who hasn't yet seen the ASOS case study of actually stopping marketing to the people who did loads of returns and the massive difference it's made to the bottom line of their business, that's what Oliver's talking about. Actually working out who you want to do your marketing to and all those other parts too. Well, look, Gerry, Oliver, Bianca and Luke, thank you all so much for bringing so much goodness to this. We've had multiple of the audience saying how brilliant you've all been. So thank you very much for being a part of this. All of you out there watching, it would be wrong of me not to plug eCommerce Tech website, my lovely website full of tech stuff. I spent ages last week tidying up the analytics category, so I'm going to shout about it. You can find our rundown of analytics tools, which includes all three of our guests who have analytics tools, at ecomtech.link/analytics. And you can also, I should also say, huge thanks to our sponsors who made this event possible. So thank you to Sparklayer, Penny Black, Distil and Sweet Analytics. Awesome to have you involved with this event. And finally, before we do say goodbye completely, our next webinar is happening in but 3 weeks' time, and we are going to be talking about TikTok for my sins. We're doing a whole panel session on TikTok, TikTok shop, how you make it work for you, what your TikTok strategies will be, and of course we'll be answering your questions too. You can sign up for that right now, web4.ecommerceexplored.com to sign up for free. Of course the replay will be available. Of course we'll be live answering your questions, and there's only me as the speaker. There will be people who know more about TikTok joining us for that very soon. They're just not on the website yet. So thank you everybody for tuning in and for being a part of this. It's been great hanging out with all of you for an hour. Bye.
Okay.